Hi, welcome to Sewing with Sandy. Today we're going to talk about pins. Pins are something that will make or break your garment project. They're really more important than you think they would be. Now these are extra fine glass head pins. These are the only pins that I use for garment sewing. I don't use quilting pins. I don't use generic pins. These pins will make a difference in how your sewing goes forward and how your fabrics cooperate. Now look at that pin. That pin is super fine. It has a little white head and it's hard to see there against this black silk fabric. So I'm going to show you how you should have your pins in your fabric, and definitely use these pins, and I'll show you what happens when you use a quilting pin on custom fabric. All right, this is a piece of beautiful silk fabric that I got in Cambodia, and we're going to use this for demonstration purposes, partly because it's black and partly because it's silk. So if I am going to sew a seam along here, and this is going to go into my sewing machine, I want my pins to be perpendicular to the presser foot as I'm sewing this way down this line. Now, I'm left-handed, so my pins are going in this way. If you're right-handed, your pins would be going this way. But you don't want to sew over your pins. You want to get to the pin and stop and pull it out, left or right side. And I'll show you how to do that on the machine. But first I want to show you the difference between a quilting pin or a generic pin and this glass head pin. So here we have the two pins. Here we have the two pins side by side. You can, with your eye, you can see how much thicker this quilting pin is. So think about this. This is a super fine, expensive silk. If I stick this in here, the chances of me snagging the fabric or leaving a hole behind is going to be a problem. If I have a fabric that is not self-healing, so if I stick a pin in it and when I take the pin out, the hole is still there, we want like a super, super fine hole in that fabric. We don't want it to have a great big clunky hole left inside of it. So let's go sew a little seam with these extra fine pins, and I'll show you how you actually pin your pieces together and sew them. Now, one of the things that you want to do when you're pinning something together, just as an onside, you want to pin the upper part and the lower part first, and then you want to go in and pin this section in the middle, because when you're sewing, your feed dogs will move the piece of fabric at the bottom faster than it will move the piece of fabric at the top. So I'm using red thread, and I'm going to sew all right, so I'm going to sew, and as I get to the pin, I'm going to pull it out. Let's just stop and pull it out. Now I happen to have a machine that stops with the needle down, which is really important. You don't want to stop with the needle up. So if you don't have a needle down machine, then you need to manually turn the flywheel to get the needle down. The only time it's acceptable to sew over your pins is when you have a basting stitch on. But yeah, there you go. So the pins are out of it, I've sewn over it, and my edges are really good. So just remember to use these glass head pins for your garment sewing needs. In general, most of the time, you will not have a problem with like poking the fabric and putting a skip stitch in it, or leaving holes, poke holes in the fabric with these pins. There are occasions where it does happen, but it will happen less frequently than if you're using great big fat quilting pins or general purpose pins. So I always use these regardless of what I'm sewing on. These are the pins that I use because they're just so slim and so easy to put in and out of the fabric that I don't use any others. So yeah, that's what I know about pins. Yeah, so until next time, happy sewing. Bye.